my God, why have you abandoned me? The scribes and the Pharisees, why the soldiers and the crowd, they had an idea about who God is and how God works. Not unlike you and I. So what did the scribes and the Pharisees, what did the crowd, what did the soldiers, what did they, more importantly, who did they think God was? Well, their idea of God was that God was an intervening God, that God is a rescuing God, because God intervenes and rescues his favorites from suffering. You see, that was their idea of who God is and was. A God who intervenes, who rescues his favorites so that they don't have to suffer. It's the reason why the crowds and the scribes and the Pharisees and the soldiers are convinced, and they keep crying out, well, if he saved others, let him save himself. Why? Let's see if God comes to his rescue. But then we go back to Psalm 22. My God, why have you abandoned me? Why? It's that very refrain that we sung tonight that tells us this tension that exists with our own understanding of who God is. God is present, and so oftentimes it feels as though God is absent. And it's all summed up in that one refrain, my God, you can't get any more personal, and you can't get any more present than those four words. My God, my God. Jesus is acknowledging the very presence of God in his life, and then in the same breath, or should I say the last breath, he says, why have you abandoned me? Which speaks of absence. So within one refrain, we acknowledge a God who is present, and then a God who is absent. So then how do we make any sense out of that? Well, then we look to the cross. And we look to the person hanging there. And we discover our hope and our life and our love. We discover that God, even though it feels as though he abandons us in our times of suffering and loss and sacrifice, what we discover is that it is there that we most find God's presence. It's what Jesus discovered as he hung upon the cross, as he prayed that this might pass away from him, yet not my will, but your will be done. You see, what Jesus comes to realize, and what you and I hopefully can come to realize as we journey through these days that are beautiful and that we call holy. Hopefully we can discover the truth once again. In that beautiful refrain, my God, why have you abandoned me? That God has not abandoned us at all, but rather God is hanging there in our suffering and in our pain. He takes our suffering and our pain and he makes it his own. And it reminds us that God is present, that he is here. Now, the truth be told, I still yell out. I bet you do too. I still yell out like the scribes and the Pharisees, the soldiers and the crowd. I still yell at God and plead for him to rescue others, especially others, from their suffering. But there's something in me, in that yelling out to God that he might come and rescue these people. There's something in me that says that destructiveness, suffering should not have the final say. And then I begin to realize that that something is the very presence of God itself, reminding me, reminding you, reminding us the important truth. Our hope, our life, and our love is found in our suffering.